Yo, welcome to another episode of the Culture Controversial Podcast Sports Talk. I'm your host, Simply Nichols 87, with my co-host D Rome and Ty H. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, what's happening?
Nothing much, man. Hey, for all the new people that didn't subscribe to the channel, y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button, man. We at 178. 178. We're trying to get to that 200, y'all. So we appreciate the people that have been subscribing and following the content that we've been putting up. And also share this content as much as you can to get it out there. We definitely appreciate that. Uh, we ain't been on. I know, well, about a week and a half, something like that. Uh, I know we missed out on the Super Bowl. You know, closer game than I thought it would be in the midst of the two teams. I mean, I did say it would be kind of like a close game, but I didn't think it would be like that kind of close.
Well, only thing I didn't like was there was a game where the officials let teams play for
Yeah,
about 59 minutes, or about 58 and a half minutes. They let them play. They were letting a lot of physicality go. They weren't really calling much. What bothered me is they waited to the last minute of the game. Then all of a sudden they started calling stuff they hadn't been calling all night long. I remember that big third down where Cincinnati had stopped and they called a defensive hold on that one. That wasn't a defensive hold at all. The play before should have been a defensive hold. They didn't call it at all.
Yeah.
And they let both teams get away with everything for the entire game until the very end, when all of a sudden they threw three consecutive flags and they walked the LA Rams right into the end zone. So I mean, if I was a Cincinnati fan, I would feel kind of bitter and salty about that because they let them play the whole game, and then right then down the stretch right there, they basically just walked them into the end zone by just throwing penalties every time they stopped them. And I thought that was BS. And I didn't like that about officials. I understand if you want to say that, yeah, that's a penalty, fine. But what bothers me, if you haven't called it all night, be consistent. Don't just wait to when the game is on the line and then you all of a sudden start making those calls. So I didn't like that at all. I felt like at that point they walked LA into the end zone and won the game for them at the end.
true.
About the same feeling. I mean, I I felt like it was going to probably be a back and forth battle the whole game. I didn't think it was going to end the way it did. A lot of questionable calls at the end, but I kind of figured that the Rams would probably be the victor at the end of the game. So I mean, it was kind of typical, as I say. It was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, cliche home team wins it all. Called the same penalty 3 times in a row in the end zone almost. I think. I
Yeah,
think.
like the officials walked them in the end zone. That's what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like it was. Yeah, well, it felt like it was just.
They wanted McVay to win that Super Bowl. I mean, that's all it is to it. They were at home. He had lost a couple years ago, about 3 years ago, New England. They weren't going to let him go and let him lose again. And the game was in their. It so happened it was on their home field, and they just got some home cooking at the end.
yeah, that's basically what happened. Yeah,
Cincinnati's offensive line couldn't block Aaron Donald either.
no, no.
When it comes to Von Miller either. So I know firsthand as a Panthers fan of how Von Miller can disrupt your backfield in a Super Bowl. So
Salute to the trap house in the building. Y'all let's go sub up over there to the trap house.
About that one.
he'd be easing the trap.
And also salute to Mr. Skinny TV. But yeah, the Super Bowl to me, man, it was. I mean, again, it was predictable. The home team, they were gonna get the home team that. I get the Bengals credit for hanging in there closer than what they did.
But they led the whole entire second half.
Half, yeah.
Yep.
It's just down to that last 2, maybe 3 minutes of that last drive, I would
Yeah.
say. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. I'm not gonna say they're a pretender, but I feel like they'll be in the playoffs next year. I don't think they're but they got to work on that line, though. That's the
I
hard
don't know
thing.
about that. 'Cause that's a bad offensive line. And the only reason they won the division this year is because Lamar Jackson got hurt. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from them, but I would think that the Baltimore is probably going to win that division next year, which would put Cincinnati more of in hunting for a wild card.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs or not. I mean, that's not guaranteed. We don't even know what the roster makeup's going to look like. That's not guaranteed at all.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's not guaranteed, but I'm just saying I don't think they're with the roster they got now, minus the offensive line, I feel like they can make a push. It ain't gonna be like a 2-14.
That's a big little chunk you just left there.
Well, I mean, if they can go in the all season and get better linemen, a better set of line, I feel like they can still. Even if they don't make the playoffs, I don't think they'll go 2-14.
No, I mean, but they might go 8-9.
Yeah, they can possibly get you in.
Maybe
if you're the NFC East.
When you lots of times when you win about 10 games, sometimes there are about 2 or 3 bounces of the ball that could have gone either way where you went from 10-6 to 7-9. So I mean, I'm not taking anything away from them. They did what they had to do, but we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Don't know who with the AFC North minus Pittsburgh. If they going for a quarterback, I don't know who's on the radar because they definitely ain't got now. So don't know who is.
I think that he'll find somebody he can plug in to manage the game if they can play good defense and run the ball well. Tomlin's is a solid coach. I don't think Tomlin's is gonna let his team just go 2-15 or whatever, however many games they play now.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh has a great tradition. They don't. Pittsburgh typically doesn't go 2-15 and stuff. Pittsburgh usually stay. They usually
get
8-8. That's like 8-8 is like the worst.
Shout out to Brian Flores too, getting in position with Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, cause I thought he would never coach another down.
Shout out to Mike Tomlin for helping them get there.
And shout out to Dan Rooney. Well, Dan Rooney's dead now, but shout out to Art Rooney Jr.
Yeah,
the Rooney family always advocated for Black coaches to get jobs. So shout out to the Rooneys for sticking to the core principles that the Rooney family have always shown. So there's no surprise to me that Art Rooney Jr. Made that move. That's his father, Art Rooney Sr., would have done that. His uncle Dan would have done the same thing. So his brother Dan, excuse me, his brother Dan would have done the same thing. So great to see the Rooney family sticking to the principles of the Rooney family name.
All work, no play in the building. I don't see how the Packers lost. I do. Aaron freaking Rodgers. Playoff.
Yeah, and San Fran had a nasty front too. That block punt really did him. Every game, man, like close games in the NFL, man, a few bounces of the ball. That's why when I even get to talking about high school ball, lots of times games can be won and lost by a few bounces. Like let's say the long snapper snapped the ball above the center's head. Above the punter's head. Stuff like that could be the difference in a ball game. A missed extra point, things like that can impact even how you call a game. But like for example, let's say if you'd have made the extra point, the score. I'm just taking a hypothetical. Let's say if you make the extra point, let's say you're down by 15, you're down 34-19. You score a touchdown, you make the extra point. It's 34-26. That's a one-score game. Let's say you missed that extra point. It's 34-25. That's just like being down by 2 touchdowns. So now you got to score twice. Let's say if there's 7 minutes left in the game. Now you got to score twice. You got to hustle, get a stop, then score again. And with very little time left versus 34-26, you just got to make one stop and get the ball back and come back and tie it up. So the point I'm making is little small things that seem like they don't matter at the time sometimes be the difference between an entire ball game. So when you look at the 49ers and Packers situation, when you get a punt block like that in a game that's already tight, that changed the trajectory of the whole game, and it did.
Yeah, it did. It really did. It changed the whole trajectory of that game. The 49ers had a good defense. They held their own.
You got to remember. You remember right before halftime, Green Bay missed a field goal, and right before those things add up. You ever heard of term death by 10,000 paper cuts? But I mean, it's a game of inches. Sometimes you could die by 10,000 paper cuts. Little things here, little things there, and unfortunately, it could lead to a game being lost.
Yeah, it definitely can. What was I about to say? I've been seeing the rumors about I don't know if y'all been seeing them too, about supposedly the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes.
Deshaun got other stuff he got to deal with first before. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to tear a brother down, nothing like that. And I wasn't there, so I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty of. He hasn't been charged with any crimes. I'm not saying that because I wasn't there. I'm not going to say anybody's lying. I'm not going to say his accusers are lying. I'm not going to say they're telling the truth because I don't know. I don't have the evidence of what's being reviewed. But what I will say is when you got 19 or 20 civil complaints against you for sexual assault, sexual harassment, you got to handle that first before you worry about playing some dang on football. So I mean, that's serious business, and that's something where you don't even know if he's going to end up getting a long suspension or something behind that. So right now, I mean, it sounds good on paper, but Deshaun got to get that straightened out first before we got to worry about who he's going to play for, because how that turns out can determine if anybody's going to want him or not.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
yeah, we just can't act like that ain't hovering over his head. That needs to be. If he got to write a check, cut a check, then he need to cut the dang on check, because as long as that's hovering over his head, football need to be the last thing on his mind until he gets that situation resolved.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I was just going by a report that was a couple reports that were being said about that he was in a potential sweepstakes, but like you said, he got to get all that stuff out now. Because I also seen that he might have to get on the stand and also I think it testified under oath or whatever.
The thing about it, when you make that kind of money and you got that kind of career, and I'm not trying to bash the brother, but don't even put yourself in that kind of position, man. I'm like, it's just like, come on, man.
Kobe should have taught everybody something.
Right. RIP, but right.
I mean, you're absolutely right on that.
See what he had to go through for something that he didn't even do.
Right. So I mean, when I saw that with Deshaun, I was like, come on, I was disappointed. And I'm not saying he committed a crime, but I'm saying to even put yourself in that position, man. I'm like, come on, Deshaun.
Well, this is gonna be a big quarterback carousel, I think, this in the offseason anyway, because I think Russell Wilson's supposedly leaving Seattle. I think Kyler Murray's out. Huh?
He ain't a free agent, is he?
I think he's trying to get out of there somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to get out. I think Kyler Murray's trying to get out of Arizona.
He doesn't even have the right. I mean, he just came in the league. Like he hasn't done anything to make those kind of demands.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't. He really hasn't. And then Aaron Rodgers, I'm pretty sure he's gonna be back in Green Bay.
Maybe, I don't know. He's a prick. So I don't know.
And Tom Brady allegedly coming out of retirement.
He ain't coming out of retirement. He ain't got nothing to prove.
You're right about that. He ain't got nothing to prove.
I mean, he has no reason. I mean, he's from the Bay Area. I mean, I know some people speculating that maybe Sanford. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing about it, I'd rather have him than have Garoppolo, even at his old age. Garoppolo's, to me, Garoppolo's just as bad as a guy like the guy we got, Sam Darnold. It's just that San Francisco is such a great team to where they were able to still hide him. Like, for example, if you put Garoppolo in Carolina, he would be just as bad, if not worse, than Darnold. If you put Darnold in San Fran, they probably still could have won 10 games, because that team is just they have a good offensive line, a great running attack, and a great defense, excellent special teams. All you gotta do is just don't F the game up. Just go out there and make enough throws to keep the drive going. Whereas Carolina, you're out on the island, but and let McCaffrey pull his hamstring or something, you up it creek. So
I heard he was on the potential trade block too.
They to manage the game, so the McCaffrey got hurt. That was a prime example. The man didn't even throw over 250 yards the first 3 games that he won.
Yeah, through 300 or some of the games. When you don't have McCaffrey, man, that hurts. As far as what you just said, Nick, I mean, it wasn't shocking. You got to look at that's how the Dallas Cowboys built their dynasty. They traded Herschel Walker and got a whole bunch of assets for him. And so, I mean, they sold Herschel Walker. And people gave up the farm for Herschel Walker. I can see. I mean, you're not winning with him, and he's not available for you. I mean, he's kind of turning into Gordie Hayward of our football. Gordie Hayward. You gave him a whole bunch of money. He ain't available. So I mean,
hey.
So I mean, if you can get something for him, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. This is a business. This ain't about sentiment and stuff like that. And people love McCaffrey. And don't get me wrong, McCaffrey's a talented player, but it helps the fanfare and the love that everybody has for him, despite him being hurt all the time and not winning with them. A lot of it, I'll leave it alone. But No, McCaffrey is popular, but I mean, he's not God. I mean, if you get something for him, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, at this point now, you gonna make it to the point where I mean, he is already injury prone. So
Yep.
I mean, it's
And
part of the
they
game as
don't
well.
realize it. They try to pound him like he might be Derrick Henry.
He's definitely not Derrick Henry.
What is he? If that, 210? Is he 215?
I doubt it.
If he was even 200, I thought it was last time. I mean, when he first got there, he was like 180, 190. If he was 200.
So you need another, like when you like what bothered me is like when they had a guy like C.J. Anderson back there with them, they still kept trying to pound it. Even when they've had bigger backs, Mike Davis and people like that back there with them, it's like they're so hell bent on justifying that draft pick and justifying that contract. Towards like even I've seen times where it's second and goal from 2 inches out or 3 yards out or whatever, and they're trying to pound it up the middle with him. That's not the type of back he is. And then I've seen like on 4th and goal and stuff, they'll pound it right up the gut with him. I'm like. He's not he's not Derrick Henry.
He's not a power guy.
He's a halfback. I mean, in the literal sense. He can
I mean, he's a guy that you want to get him on the edge, and get him out in the open field, get him in space, and he'll gas you. But you need another back there for in those short yardage goal line situations, and then you can have him. He's got a 3 yards in the cloud of dust guy. Like if he makes somebody miss, he's gone for a touchdown. But he's not the guy that on 3rd and 2 that you're gonna run. You're gonna run between the center and the guard with. I mean, that's just
no. You're not gonna.
And it's not that he can't run the ball. It's like he's not big and strong enough to push a pile like that. And and they're running him into the dirt. That's why he's getting hurt all the time because they give him so many touches a game because he's playing wide receiver too. He lines up in the slot sometimes. So I mean, he's playing almost every down, whether it's at slot receiver or at running back. He's touching the ball almost every play, and they're running him into the dirt. They're running him into the dirt the same way they ran Cam Newton into the dirt.
Yep. Pretty much. Pretty freaking much.
So, I mean, if you're trading, you better. He's about 25 now. You better do it while you get something for him.
Yeah,
because you don't want him to get too close to that 30 mark. Because once you get around 26, when you get around 27 or whatever, nobody ain't trading for him. He's about how old is he? About 25.
25, I think.
Or 24 or something. He was like 21 when he came in because he graduated early.
He's probably 26 now because this is going in the 5th year, ain't it?
Hey, somebody Google it. All work, no play, or somebody that's in the chat, or whatever. Google Christian McCaffrey and tell us how old he is. Just type it in there. And I mean, we'll move on, but I just want Nick ready to. But I just want to because I can't Google it from where I'm at. So.
Yeah, I got you. You good. But like you said, the average. I don't know. The average career of a back is not really that long, so
no. And then he's undersized. Like I said, if you had a guy like when Lindell White was playing, like you like when you had Chris Johnson running in Tennessee, you had Lindell White back with
that was perfect.
Yeah, when you had say what?
He's 25.
Okay, when you had D'Angelo Williams, you had Jonathan Stewart with them. When you had when you look at other teams,
Brandon Jacobs
had Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush when they had somebody with Kamara too. Mark Ingram. They had a couple of years ago they had Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, and then one of those years Latavius. Then they had Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. You still got a guy like Latavius Murray would be perfect. I don't know. He might be getting a little older now, but I'm talking about that style of back. A guy like Latavius Murray wouldn't cost a whole bunch of money. Would be a guy that could complement McCaffrey.
And in those years, like I said, when you explain those years with the two back tandem, because like you said, you had Lindell White, Chris Johnson, you had Brandon Jacobs, and what was his name? Ahmad
Bradshaw.
Ahmad Bradshaw. Yeah. Carolina had Stewart and Williams.
Yeah. Well, the Giants actually had 3. They had Ahmad Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs, and Derek Ward. They had 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anytime you have that smaller back, you want to have that. Even like when you go down to the high school level, like when Anson County, when we had Patrick Pope, you still had Jamie Bennett too, and DJ Ellery and guys like that. So you still had Jamie Bennett who could pound that rock, and you had Patrick Pope who could gas you, and DJ Ellery could gas you too. I mean, you still had James Kirby and you had Brent Simpson. I mean, if we take it down to the high school level,
yeah,
you still had J.C. Coleman, RIP, and Michael Bowman. So you still have Michael Bowman and Greg Flowers. So I mean, you still, even at that level, if we go to college, you still had Reggie Bush and Lindell White. So speaking of Lindell White and Reggie Bush again, and those tandems like that. When you go to Auburn, you had Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown. So
Yes,
you still
Lord.
had tandem. You had Trent Richardson and Mark Ingram. So you can do those. You had Darren McFadden and Phillip Jones. I could go on and on and on and on.
How you last so long? You must have superpower.
And I'm on the CC. This is water, and I'm on the Hennessy.
I gotta get the tickets, man. I'm gonna find them tickets. I don't know if they went on sale yet, but I got to go.
Who for Too Short or for Drake?
No, Mount Westmore coming to Charlotte.
Oh, you talking E49?
E40, Too Short.
Yes.
Ice Cube, yeah. I ain't never
let me
seen
know
Ice
the price
Cube,
of them, Hey, if you ain't rolling with the old lady or something, let me know what the movie is.
I got you.
I definitely
know.
And everybody want to talk music. Everybody go listen to that Big Crit album. What's the name of it? True Roses Never Die, something like that.
I got to download it. I said you sent it to me. I was like, man, I got to get it downloaded. I hadn't even downloaded it yet, but I'm definitely gonna get on it because I'm glad it's been listening to that CM10, and I'm definitely gonna download it.
Yeah, so smooth album.
Yeah. So let's get into tonight's topic. A little NBA history. I've seen these posts all on the Al Gore's internet, and
Al Gore's.
Gotta call it Al Gore's internet. But they've been having these comparison posts, like who had the better competition, Jordan or LeBron. Personally, me, I'm gonna say Jordan.
I mean, I can't wait to jump into this.
I'm just gonna say Jordan because Jordan had you had Isaiah, who's a Hall of Famer in his own right.
I'm probably the second best point guard ever played the game, but go ahead.
Yeah, Magic Johnson, who is the best point guard to ever play the game. Who else? He had a dominant
Karl Malone's
big.
second all-time leading scorer. John Stockton's also one of in that top 5 point guard mix.
You had minus the people that went on a Kareem, Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley. Those type of caliber players. Now, I'm not gonna say LeBron didn't have that no competition, but I don't think he had as much compared to Jordan.
Let me jump into this, man. I want this.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say LeBron had less competition. What I'll say is, but for whatever, I think is their peaks and valleys. So if we look at the Jordan championship years, let's go with the championship. Start with championship years. Who they beat? They beat first one they beat the Lakers. That was Magic Johnson, James Worthy. That was Magic Johnson's final game. Before the the second one they beat Portland with that Portland team didn't have any guys besides you had Clyde Drexler, but it's not like they had that Portland team was a team that had a bunch of all NBA players. Clyde Drexler was the only all NBA player in that game. You had that team had like Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, Jerome Kersey, Cliff Robinson, RIP on those teams. Good team, but not the team but not like besides Clyde Drexler, it's not like there are any notable names on that Portland team. On the third one, they beat Phoenix. That's when Charles Barkley won league MVP that year, so he beat the league MVP. That they had Kevin Johnson, Thunder Dan Marley, guys like that on the team. Then, of course, he retired after the tragic death of his father, and he set out the next year. Bulls lost in the Eastern semis to the Knicks, and the Knicks went on to beat the Pacers in the conference championship and lost in 7 to the Rockets. Then that next year he came back with 17 games left. They beat the Charlotte Hornets in the first round and lost to the Orlando Magic in the second round. Then on that last run, they won 72 games and they beat the Seattle Sonics in 96. And then 97, 98, they beat the Utah Jazz back-to-back. Those are 6 championships. So I know if someone is looking at it on today's time, I'm going to say, well, those weren't star-studded teams. You may have had the key guys like your Karl Malones, like your Charles Barkley's, like your Clyde Drexler's. But you could also say, but that's the way the league was at that time. You didn't have everybody teaming up and joining super teams. So let's go to LeBron's championships. The first one he won was against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. James Harden wasn't a superstar at that time. He was coming off the bench, averaging about 12 points a game during that time of his career. So, I mean, he may average about 16 that year. But my point is, James Harden hadn't emerged as a star at that time. So you can't look at James Harden of today and try to apply it to James Harden then. That's when he was just second year, third year player. So that wasn't considered like a super team or anything at the time. The next year they beat the San Antonio Spurs. That San Antonio Spurs team had 0 All-NBA players on it. I know people gonna say Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was past his prime at that time. They beat him in 7 with it. They won the series no matter who choked. They still won the series.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next year they ended up losing to that same San Antonio team. That San Antonio team, like I said, that next year had 0 All-NBA players. Tim Duncan was at the end of the road. Ginobili was completely washed up. Parker was old. Kawhi Leonard, people gonna say, well, they had Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard was not a star at that time. Kawhi Leonard was like a third-year player or something like that, averaging about 12 a game. He was a role player at that time, so he wasn't a star player then. They had 0 All-NBA players and they lost. So let's look at who he lost to. We can't look at who Jordan lost to in the finals because it never happened. So let's look at who he lost to. The first time he went to the finals, I'm not going to hold that against him. In 2007 when they lost to San Antonio, I'm not holding that against him. He was a 22-year-old kid, and they had nothing. They may have Zydrunas Ilgauskas. You had people like Boobie Gibson and stuff in the supporting cast. I'm not holding that against him. So I give him a pass on that. The next time he got to the finals and lost was in 2011 when they lost to Dallas Mavericks. That was completely unacceptable. Dirk Nowitzki was the only All-NBA player on that team. I like to use All-NBA because All-Stars kind of can be inflated. Hall of Fame can be inflated, but All-NBA. See, the thing about Hall of Fame, if a basketball Hall of Fame is watered down, and what Hall of Fame is based on hindsight, how people look at you, at your legacy, but All-NBA is how your peers, All-NBA is how you regard at the time that you played. So if you make the All-NBA selection, people think there are 3 All-NBA teams. So to be an All-NBA player, you have to be that's the top 15 players. There's a first and second team, and third team All-NBA. So if you made an All-NBA team, you were essentially one of the top 15 players in the game. So that means if you make an All-NBA team that year, you were considered one of the top 15 players in that time you played and that year that you played. Not where somebody's coming back later on and having nostalgia and trying to immortalize you in the Hall of Fame. So that's why I use that as the standard. So that Dallas Mavericks team, the only All-NBA player that year on that team was Dirk Nowitzki. So they had no other All-NBA player, and they let people like LeBron James outplayed by Jason Terry. So you can't. So when people try to use the competition argument, that Dallas Mavericks team, they were considered head and shoulders above that Dallas Mavericks team. And the thing about it, if you look at who Jordan had, Scottie Pippen is the only All-NBA player he had. I know people want to talk about Rodman. Me and Shilton always debate about Rodman. Rodman made the 75 list. We could argue whether he deserved to be on there or not, but nevertheless, Dennis Rodman never made an All-NBA team, at least not in Chicago. Rodman was only a 2-time All-Star, and those 2 All-Stars were when he was in Detroit, and that was as a 6th man. So when people try to say like that's a big 3, that's not a big 3. So look at what they had with them. If you're going to talk, when people want to talk about the competition with James, but people don't want to talk about how stacked his teams were when he won championships and when he competed for championships. So when you look at his time in Miami, he was with Dwayne Wade, who was another top 5 player, and Chris Bosh, who was another All-NBA player. So you got 2 other top 15 players, 2 other All-NBA players with you that entire time that you were there in Miami, and you still lost twice. One to a San Antonio team that had no All-NBA players, and another to the Dallas Mavericks who had only 1 All-NBA player. So that's 2 other All-NBA guys, 3 All-NBA guys losing to a team with 0 and losing to another team with 1. That's unacceptable. If you go and look at the championship he won in Cleveland, I'll give him credit because they were playing against a tough team. But if you want to evaluate it, you're basically saying 3 All-NBA guys versus this before Durant got there. So you're talking about 3 All-NBA guys. I'm trying to think, did Green make an All-NBA? I'm not sure. I know he's made an all defense. But as far as star players, you're talking about Curry and Thompson. You can say James and Irving, and then you can throw Love in there too if you want to. That's kind of mano-a-mano. They lost the first one. They beat him the second time. And then, of course, I'm not going to hold any of the ones with Durant played against them because that's on those. We'll say on the ones they lost with Durant there, you could say that, Jordan didn't face anything like that. That's being practical and fair about it. But at the same time, you could also argue that, hey, he got 2 other star players with him. And in the back half of James's career from 2010 on out, He's played with multiple All NBA players. Throughout Michael Jordan's entire career, he's only played with one All NBA player. Scottie Pippen is the only player that Michael Jordan played with who made All NBA while he was on the team with him. These are facts. That's not my opinion. So so even if you want to say there were times that maybe James may have faced a tougher opponent, still there were losses. Even if you want to, let's say we take the Golden State losses out of it. Let's say we take the first San Antonio loss back 07 out of it. That loss to Dallas in 2011 when you were on a super team in Miami, and then that loss to San Antonio again that second time you were on a super team in Miami. Those two are unacceptable, and you can't. And those are two series that when you got two other All NBA players with you, you can't lose to a team with only one All NBA player and another with zero All NBA players. I'm sorry.
I agree, man. That point right there, that hit the nail on the head. Now, like you said, I'm not gonna count the first one because it is what it is. That team was still kind of they still was in their top prime. The first San Antonio loss with Cleveland.
He was a kid then. I don't hold that against him.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold that one. That Dirk one, I'm gonna hold that one. Considering that Dirk Nowitzki was the only player, All NBA player on your team.
Yeah.
And you had three.
I left something out, man. I don't mean to interrupt you. There was another point I left out before. And I think because we broke it down to the NBA Finals, but if we look at the whole picture, those Eastern conferences were extremely weak that James played in too. And we could say that even if James may have faced some tougher competitions in the finals, we could say that Jordan faced tougher Eastern Conference opponents to those Knicks teams that he faced Miami Heat team with Mourning and Hardaway and all those. But those Knicks rivalries with those Knicks teams, those were tough. Back then, the East was stacked. You had like Indiana, you had the New York Knicks, you had the Miami Heat. You had about 3 or 4 teams in the Eastern Conference that considered themselves contenders to go to the finals during those times, versus when James was in the East with Miami and when he went to Cleveland the second time, the next best team he had was like Toronto, which was a distant second behind him as far as quality of team and ability to compete with them. One of those times you had like the Atlanta Hawks and stuff like that. Those weren't, as far as the level of talent on their teams, those were teams that couldn't compete with them. So he always had an easy breeze through the Eastern Conference. But continue.
But yeah, like I was saying, though, I give him a pass on the first one because he was a kid. But the Dallas one, I'm not. I'm with you on that. I can't give you a pass when you had two other All NBA players with you, and you figure how to choke that 2-0 lead. I'm not taking it away from the Mavericks. I mean, Dirk did what Dirk could do. They gave Dirk what he wanted, and Dirk took it. And
Jason Terry was different in that series, though. Dirk played well. And Dirk won Finals MVP on his name, but Jason Terry took LeBron James to school.
Legit.
And Jason Terry's never been an NBA All-Star, never made an All-NBA team.
Yep.
And he outplayed James in that series. The same, to me, that was just as inexcusable for when the Lakers lost to the Pistons that time. When those Pistons teams didn't, if they had somebody made All-NBA, it was like third team or something like that. But they didn't have no designated superstar player, and the Lakers had no business losing that series, and that was just equally as inexcusable. Go ahead.
I still can't figure that loss out either, but it is what it is. Can't play it back, but honestly, man, I don't know. LeBron, good player, great,
great player. Come on now, great player. Let's be fair about it.
No, I'm not saying like great. I'm just saying like he's a good player. Not saying like he's not great. But I'm just saying like they're gonna make that narrative. Oh, LeBron's not good or great. But I'm just saying he's a great player. I put it like that. But when it down to crunch time, I don't really think sometimes he shows up to play. That's just me.
I agree. He shies away from the big moments sometimes. My biggest issue with him is that he's such a front runner. And what I mean by that, he always wants every situation to be favorable where he has to be in the most favorable position. He doesn't have, and I'm not trying to say he's not a competitor, but sometimes a lot of great players sometimes have to play as the underdog. Sometimes you're not going to have home court advantage in every series. Sometimes you're not going to. The odds are not going to always be in your favor where you're going to be looked at as the favorite. But it's like it's almost like he plays GM. He always puts himself in position to be the ultimate favorite. and never and when things don't go right, he'll do this kind of like victim type thing and do this like I don't have enough help. Like I remember toward the end of his run, his second run in Cleveland. Now the first time he was in Cleveland, I mean, it didn't have much, but that second run in Cleveland, when after they had traded Irving to Boston and they brought in little Isaiah Thomas after he had messed his hip up. And I remember that year he was complaining about management not spending enough to build a competitive roster, but yet they had the highest payroll in the league. So, and that's when Charles Barkley said he doesn't ever want to compete. It's like at the time they were like the fourth seed or something like that. It's like not every time everything's not going to always. Life isn't like that. Not everything's going to line up perfectly for you to be at the best odds in the most favorable position. Sometimes you have to battle through the adversity. Sometimes you have to battle through tough challenges. He's always been in the situation, always put himself in a situation where he's in a front running situation where all the odds are stacked in his favor. And usually with the guys that he can recruit to play with him, he's always recruiting all NBA caliber players to play with him on his teams, at least in the second half of his career. And so I mean, and when people talk about the playoff success and stuff he had, I mean, with the caliber, look how many all NBA players he's played with. Let's see.
Lot.
Right.
D-Wade.
Right, I'm not going to count them all, but I mean, people that D-Ride him, they know who he's played with. You look at, and I'm not talking about the first time in Cleveland, but from that time he played for Miami, that's when he started winning championships. From that time on, he's played with a lot of All NBA players. And like I said, if you look at Michael Jordan's career, the only player he ever played with him that was a teammate that made an All NBA roster on the team with him is Scottie Pippen. That is a fact. So when people talk about they had a big three with Rodman and all that stuff, first of all, they won 3 championships before Rodman ever got there. They won 3 championships with Horace Grant playing power forward. They don't ever they try to act like Rodman won all 6 of them. Rodman has 5 championships. He won 2 in Detroit and won 3 with the Bulls. The 2 he won in Detroit, he was backing up people like Rick Mahorn. He was not the starter, but he was a 6th man of the year and defensive player of the year. Great defender like he's always been. But he was never an All-NBA player or made a star player. He was a role player, a very good role player, great defender and rebounder, just like a Dikembe Mutombo is a great defender and rebounder, just like a Ben Wallace is a great defender and rebounder. But those guys are not considered superstar players, and nobody, if they sign with someone, no one will be saying that's a big 3. That whole thing was people trying to rewrite history and try to make it look like Michael Jordan played with a bunch of superstars so they could use that narrative against him when they're trying to argue that LeBron James is better. What I will say is Dennis. I'm not taking anything away from Dennis Rodman. He played his role well, but it's a fact that he. And when people say, "Well, but you're going to talk about Bosh, and you're going to put Bosh over Rodman," I said Bosh is an 11-time All-Star. I didn't make it up. Bosh is an 11-time All-Star. He's a multi-time All-NBA player. I didn't make it up. I mean, anybody can Google it. I about to say Dennis Rodman's a 2-time All-Star and never been an All-NBA player. I'm not making this up. So Bosh has made made more All NBA teams than Dennis Rodman, and Bosh has made more All Stars, 11 All Stars. Bosh was the best player in those Toronto teams that he led to the playoffs. If you ask someone to have Dennis Rodman to be the best player on a team and lead them to anything, he wouldn't be able to because all he was a role player. If you got great players there, he's a role player that could be that glue guy to get you over the top, not the guy that carries the team. So when people try to draw that comparison, I'm like, that's not fair. People are looking at hindsight and looking at the championships won and looking at legacy and looking at it on the basis of nostalgia and emotion rather than taking a look at the data and the information. Like I said, Chris Bosh is 11-time All-Star, most-time All-NBA player. I didn't make it up. Those are facts.
Yeah, I rebuttal what you were saying that as far as like LeBron wanting to be the front runner. I think after he won that championship in Miami, he wanted everything to be that easy.
Yep.
I definitely think like now he thinks like everything is gonna be just like it was in Miami, and it's not. You're not gonna get those caliber.
Like and Kevin Durant's the same way.
Yeah, I agree.
These 2 guys, both in their respective eras, are the people that people mention as the best players in the game. And they had such little competitive. When things got tough, they ran. And Durant's even worse because he joined the team that he couldn't. He joined the guys that he couldn't beat. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I see that, I don't ever. And then Durant was one of the people who criticized LeBron when he went to Miami. Then he turns around and pulled the stunt he pulled, and then when people boo him and criticize him, he gets sensitive about it and gets upset. The era of these NBA players, the lesson they're teaching you is if things get tough, abandon your mission and take the easy way out.
Minus Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Well, that's why I like him. I'm about to say, and the thing about it, when it comes to Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Kevin Durant, his one championship is more impressive than the two that Durant won. This is a man
Absolutely.
kept coming up short in Milwaukee. He was, and I don't know if did Chris Middleton make the All NBA team last year?
I don't know if he did or he didn't. I don't
Can you
know.
Google that for him? Can you Google the 2020-2021 All NBA team, all three of them, and let me know if Chris Middleton made one of them? I think he might have been like third team or something like
I
that.
think third team. Let me Google it real quick.
Yeah. My point is, Chris Middleton is the only All NBA player, and nobody considers Chris Middleton a superstar. But so all the years, just him and Chris Middleton. They brought in Drew Holiday, which was a big help as a defender. But it's not like this is some stacked super team. They beat the Brooklyn Nets. They went on to go to the NBA Finals, and they won in the championship round. And this is a guy who he didn't get complaining, demanding trades or whatever. They just stuck with it, and he ended up leading his team to a championship. Scored 50 points in the clinching game. So no matter how you no matter what you say, people want to say that Durant's the best player in the world, but Giannis Antetokounmpo did something Durant's never done, and that's when led a team to a championship where he was undisputed leading guy and there was no other superstar with him. Whereas with Durant, he couldn't get it done in Oklahoma City. He went to where they already had the back-to-back MVP and an All NBA two guard and a team that already had won a championship and had just played in the finals. He went and joined them and got them over top. Where you already had the two-time MVP and another All-NBA player there, whereas Giannis Antetokounmpo let them continue to build around him, continue to get better, and end up leading that team to a championship after falling short. That's something that Kevin Durant's never done. Then Kevin Durant goes to Brooklyn, and last year, I know Irving got hurt, but he had Harden there, another Olympic player, and still couldn't get it done, and lost. And it wasn't his fault they lost, but lost at home in a Game 7 to Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks.
I'll say this.
Yeah. Chris Middleton wasn't on any of the NBA team first, second.
So you said he was not?
He was not.
So Giannis Antetokounmpo led the Milwaukee Bucks to the NBA championship with no other All-NBA player. So Giannis Antetokounmpo was the only All-NBA player on that team last year. That is a fact. That's not my opinion. That happened. That's something that Kevin Durant has never done. Kevin Durant's never even gone to the finals without another All-NBA player.
Let me say this.
Okay.
Mathematics is probably key to a lot of things. You look at the numbers, and they always say numbers never lie.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, it's factual. And it says if a person goes to the final 6 out of 6 times and wins it, versus a person that's 4 out of 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
That right there should be a given right there in an era that in the 80s and 90s was hard-nosed basketball. If you go back and look
much more physical.
Yeah. You go back and look at clips from the late 80s and 90s in basketball, you see you see 90-day difference in the physicality of how they play. I mean, they can get in a fight, an NBA game back then, and wouldn't even get suspended. Now if you swing, you get in 2-3 games.
Right. And now, if you go up to shoot and you flail your arms, you're going to the line for 3 free throws. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's night and day. So when people start doing that, I mean, it's like you got a lot of rules that you didn't have then that you have now. It's making it easier for players to score. It's making it easier to get to the line and get more points. Like I said, back then, the foul that you see that's like a flagrant foul on 1-2 of it, the classification that they have now, that was just coming fouls back in the 80s and 90s.
Yep. You see guys now get ejected from games for something that used to be a common foul.
Yeah.
And see guys now get flagrant ones for when, and you're like, that's a flagrant?
Yeah.
Like all it did was foul them. I've seen that several times.
But it's just like when people say that, it's like I look at him like, come on, man. Like y'all really don't know. Y'all really just see one side of what y'all think is the greatest basketball player. And again, I'm not taking nothing away from LeBron. LeBron is a great player in his time. Just like Jordan was a great player in his time. Just like Wilt was a great player at time. You know what I mean? Different eras that players were great. In the 80s and 90s, where you probably seen the most physical part of NBA, which you had back then too. Like you hit earlier, teams had pretty much their own superstar back then. A lot of teams back in the 80s and 90s were balanced to a degree. They had one good player. You didn't
Right.
have, it was unspoken for another good player to want to go play with somebody.
Right.
They didn't like that. Like they'll pretty much talk junk to
Right. And look
like
at Tim Duncan for example. Tim Duncan won 5 NBA championships, 4 of them when he was undisputed star player.
yeah.
I know people going to talk David Robinson. David Robinson was washed up by that time.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan won 5 championships, and he never had another All NBA teammate during the years he won championships. Ginobili never been 6 man of the year and stuff. He was never an All NBA player. Tony Parker's he's made some All-Star teams, but he's never made an All-NBA team. So I'm telling you that he won 5 NBA championships, and never in the year that he won any of those championships did he have another All-NBA player with him. And I think he lost 1 finals. That was to Miami with that city team. So he went there 6 times and won 5 of them. But when people get to leapfrogging LeBron, and then I don't know why do people want to make an argument like is it Jordan or is it LeBron? There are other people that you got to evaluate before you just leapfrog them. And I know I'm biased towards Kobe, but I'm talking about that's still 5 right there too. And my whole point is, but even with the Tim Duncan thing, I'm arguing the Tim Duncan thing because look, Tim Duncan didn't have all NBA players, but still won 5. So, but if you look at Magic Johnson, and I know Magic Johnson had some star players, but Magic Johnson won 5 championships. I know he played in the finals 9 times, but he won 5 in the first 7 attempts. So, also won Finals MVP as a rookie, 3-time league MVP. 3-time Finals MVP as well. When you and the greatest point guard of all time. I don't see how people could just so easily leapfrog him ahead of Duncan, leapfrog him ahead of Magic and people like that before. It's just they jump him like either Jordan number 1 or LeBron number 2 or vice versa. I'm like, how can you just, with all his failures and his failures and big moments, how can you just even leapfrog him ahead of those people? And people want to say, well, the numbers. I said, well, if you're going to just look, how do you even leapfrog him ahead of a Kareem? But Kareem is a 6-time MVP. Let's run down Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's a 6-time league MVP.
Right.
3-time Finals MVP.
19
He's a 19-time All-Star. And right now, I know LeBron got a chance to catch him on this, but right now, he's the NBA's all-time leading scorer. And now I can only go by today. So, I mean, at this point, how can you even leapfrog him ahead of a Kareem? Like, I'm not understanding how he's being leapfrogged over so many people like this when you got even more. If you're going by accomplishments, you got other guys who are more accomplished than him who failed less than him, and yet it's just you're putting him right there with Jordan. And to me, that's just recency bias because you got an entire era of fans who that's the only player they grew up watching. That's the favorite player, and now those people are the ones giving the narrative. And so since they're pushing the narrative, it's almost just like it's between Jordan and LeBron. Well, you got other guys that you got to evaluate before you can put LeBron ahead of some of those guys.
That's true. And I think this is back to what we were talking about before. I was gonna say Golden State didn't need Kevin Durant. Durant needed Kevin Durant needed Golden State.
That's true. Most definitely.
Let me say this too. Hitting on Magic now. Magic went 5 out of 7 again. Magic
5 and 2.
Think about if you put Magic in this era, Magic probably will be so unstoppable. I mean, the way he played, a 6'9" point guard.
Yeah, great vision with his vision and his passing.
But he could, like
in the small ball.
Yeah,
in the small ball area, man, and he could play center and power forward too. Because they're moving around at different positions. He started center in that game, and Kareem got hurt, and in his rookie year in the finals in that game 6. So my point, he could play multiple positions and guard multiple positions too. Could guard the pick and roll and all that. He could play small forward, could play power forward, play center and all that. He's 6'9". He had the versatility to play multiple. In today's game, I think Magic Johnson will even be more dominant. The thing that's so sad about it, people want to talk about today's game and try to put guys today ahead of guys yesteryear with arguments that today's game is more difficult. When actually, I think the guys of yesteryear would even be better if they played in today's game, because today's game is easier because you might have some better athletes, but the rules are in place where it's less physical. There's a little physicality there, so now those guys kind of have free range. And defense is such a rarity now because the rules are set where it's hard to play defense. But those guys will have a field day now versus then when they had to get slammed on the ground. I think guys like Magic Johnson. Somebody tried to argue one time that Shaq wouldn't be good in today's game. I said, man, if Shaq played today, there are no other centers in the league at all.
Shaq would average 40, 50 points a game.
Shaq came in the perfect time that he needed to come in and dominate. So, like, think about it. It was a decent centers when Shaq played. I mean, Shaq still played with a Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning,
Elijah Warren.
He still played with Elijah Warren.
Even guys like Rick Smith and stuff. They were even like a guy like Rick Smith will be considered a star in today's game.
Yeah.
Rick Smith, 7'4", she could shoot the three and all that. That's like what centers do these days. And he still averaged about 15 points and stuff back then. And Rick Smith played and guys like Rick Smith and Ralph Sampson and stuff, if they played in today's game, man, they would be superstars.
Some of these players that like
Tony Kukoc should be an All-NBA player if he played in today's game.
Oh yeah,
Tony Kukoc, John Starks
in today's game.
Yeah, a guy like Tony Kukoc, if he played in today's game, he would be a star. Like the 6'11", can handle the ball, to shoot from outside range and all that, can score from anywhere in the court. A guy like Tony Kukoc would be a superstar in today's game. He'd be like Luka Doncic and stuff in today's game, or at least like Kristaps Porzingis.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you still had players that weren't even like superstars, like your John Starks and your I can't think of my man's name from Utah, Jeff Hornaceks and
guys like Vernon Maxwell and guys like that.
Think about a Ron Harper or somebody like that, even.
Yep. Ron Harper.
Guys like Tim Hardaway, those kind of Dan Harley, those kind of guys. Man, if they played in today's game, man, their numbers would be so inflated.
Sidney Moncrief, defensive monster.
If Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was playing today, he was like an MVP type player. Because Steph Curry's game, and I know people got mad at Phil Jackson when he said this, but if you go back and watch Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, I know he couldn't shoot as well as Curry, but the way Curry's style of play is very similar to that of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. If Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf played today, and if you watch Big Three, you can see him light it up in the Big Three. If Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was playing today, man, he would be a monster. And while I'm speaking of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, before you go worshiping Cadillac, I mean not Cadillac, the guy that played the 49ers, Kaepernick. Before you go worshiping Kaepernick, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf did it first.
Yep, and Craig Hodges to a degree too, because their religious belief,
right,
got football by the NBA back then,
right. And if you don't know who Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf is, look up Chris Jackson. Former LSU star Chris Jackson. He and Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf are one and the same.
My brother. But yeah, I just honestly think that 90s, you put the 90s NBA in today's game, it would be more entertaining. To me, it'd be more entertaining, more watchable.
Make a point right here. Think about Shawn Kemp. What do you think? How would Shawn Kemp be in today's NBA?
Oh, he'd be dominant.
To me, like Blake Griffin and Zion Williamson are on that same mold. He'd be a great athlete. To me, Shawn Kemp always needed the way that Blake Griffin needed Chris Paul. Shawn Kemp needed Gary Payton in that same way. So I think, he could have been like what Blake Griffin was with the Clippers.
Yeah, Chris Mullins, yeah.
Chris Mullins in the Hall of Fame, but doesn't deserve to be. Chris Mullins was a good player. I think in today's game, he's 6'10", small, left-handed small forward who could score at will from outside. I think he's another guy that would be a mega star if he played today. And I'm not trying to be fun, but being a white player too, they would have tried to make him into like a Bird 2.0, being except he's left-handed, but being 6'10" and stuff. He would have gotten calls like that in today's game, and with no physicality, a guy like Chris Mullins with his height. And with the small ball era, he could have guys like I said, guys like Chris Mullin, guys like Rick Smith, guys like Ralph Sampson. Man, they could have guys like Tony Kukoc. They could have been something in today's game.
I say this
they were good when he played, but I'm talking about they could have been great in today's game.
I say this too. You line up 90s versus now. I guarantee you, just play the rules as is. That today's team would not score over 100 points against those 90s teams.
No, because they would bang. They would get physical with them. They would get in their head and they would bang them on the inside, pound them on the glass, that type thing. Back then, big men crashed the boards back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Charles Barkley was 6'4" and he won a rebounding title. So that lets you know how tenacious he was when he played. So I mean, and it's hard to compare eras because, like I said, just like the '80s was even more physical. Like and no one definitely can't say that Magic didn't have competition because those Detroit teams, those Boston teams, those Philadelphia teams back then in the East, Philadelphia, Boston, and who the other one I said, and Detroit. All three of them championship contenders. They had three teams just on any given year that could win championship at any point. And all three of them did win the championship at some point in that time frame. The Lakers lost to Philadelphia. Got swept by Philadelphia. They beat Philadelphia in 1980, but they got swept by Philadelphia in 1983 with Dr. J and Moses Malone.
Yep.
They lost to the Celtics in 84, but they beat them in 85 and 86, I think.
And that's another person I don't see how LeBron leapfrogged over too. Dr. J.
So what?
That's another person I don't see how LeBron leapfrogged over Dr. J.
I put him over Dr. J. It's kind of unfair to Dr. J. Dr. J didn't come into the league until he was older. Because Dr. J played in the ABA first half of his career.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he was good.
I'm not a LeBron guy, but I'm not gonna just. I still gotta be fair. I gotta be unbiased in my evaluation of him. I'm not knocking Dr. J, but I'm not putting him below Dr. J now. LeBron James is still the great. Dr. J is small forward. LeBron James is still the greatest small forward to ever play the game. I think that's undisputed, and probably top 6 or 7 players to ever play the game. But I'm nothing against Dr. J. I promise you I have nothing. Dr. J is one of the all-time greats. But I ain't putting Dr. J ahead of LeBron James. LeBron James is the best small forward to ever play the game.
So you would take LeBron over Dr. J?
Yes, I would. I'll take him over Larry Bird, too. I'll take him over any other small forward. He's the best. He is hands down the greatest small forward to ever play the game. I'll give him that.
Okay. Well, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just asking.
I mean, no matter how I feel about him, I mean, he's the greatest. I mean, you talking about his talents and abilities. Can handle the ball like a point guard. Can bang like a power forward. Can, when he gets hot, can shoot from outside. Can pass like. I mean, you talking about the ability to pass the ball like. He's one of the. He's like top 10 all time in assists too. Now, I mean, you got to give him his due. I've never said he's not great. I've never argued that he wasn't great. It's just the whole Jordan confidence. But as far as just like when people compare Kobe to Jordan, I thought that was ridiculous. But Kobe was still great, and I think that LeBron is still great. But those that putting him up there is just like trying to say that is he better than Jordan or even a comp to Jordan? I don't even see the comparison there. And like I said, and the other great players who you still got to, like I was mentioning, those I mentioned before, that you got to look at. Dr. J is not one of those.
Okay.
And Dr. J was great. At that point, that'd be like me trying to say that George Gervin is better than Kobe Bryant, and George Gervin's a Hall of Famer, but he ain't Kobe Bryant.
No, he's not Kobe Bryant. No.
So I'm gonna ask y'all this then. Like I see all these polls of like the top 10 players all time, let's say from the 50 era up to now. Do you agree that LeBron's above Kobe in a lot of those?
I can live with it. I can live with it. I don't like they got Kobe down to 11. That's disrespectful.
Yeah,
I think Kobe Bryant should be around 5 or 6 with the greatest players of all time, somewhere around 5 or 6. I think LeBron probably you could have around 4.
Yeah, but you got to Magic and Kareem. You got to keep them at least two or 3. That list I've seen, they were like 9 and 10, and I was like, ain't no way.
Yeah, and I saw where people had like Olajuwon's ranked too low on some of these lists too. I believe in a top 10, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James are both should be solidly in anybody's top 10.
Yeah.
It's too many players to evaluate because it's going to be subjective anyway. As far as your top 4 in whatever particular order, if you want to put a Michael Jordan there, if you want to put a Kareem there, if you want to put a Magic there, and then after that maybe you can put a LeBron there for 5th or 6th. Then after that you can go with a Kobe Bryant at one of those at that 5 or 6 slot, or you can say Tim Duncan's 5th, Kobe 6th, and vice versa. I mean you can kind of work with that. Then after that it starts to become a crapshoot.
Yeah, I agree. I like with
I
those
like
four.
I like
I
I like to do it by position because like for example, like when I say greatest point guard, I think Magic Johnson's the greatest point guard. I think Michael Jordan's the greatest two guard. I think LeBron James the greatest small forward. If you want to say Tim Duncan's power forward, and I'll say the greatest power forward, even though they were listing him at power forward when he was playing center a lot, they still list him at power forward. So you can say Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward. Greatest center is the hardest one for me because now you got to look at Wilt, you got to look at Kareem, you got to look at Shaq, you got to look at Russell, you got to look at the eras and try to, and you got even got to look at Hakeem Olajuwon too. You got to kind of decipher and
yeah,
decide. That's the toughest one. But I'll say that no matter which one you go with, it's going to be a Laker. So
Yeah.
Wilt was a Laker,
yeah.
Shaq was a Laker, and Kareem was a Laker. And I probably just end up going with Kareem. And then if you want to
I
go,
probably lean towards Kareem on that.
then if you want to go second number 2 point guard of all time, you could either say John Stockton or Isaiah Thomas, which the real Isaiah Thomas, not that little sucker that used to play with Celtics. You can coin flip between him with two guards. Kobe Bryant's the second greatest two guard to play the game. Small forward, and then you can maybe say Larry. I might go Larry Bird after James. Who was that? Who's next? Power forward, Karl Malone or Charles Barkley. Pick whichever. Flip a coin on how you want to decipher that. At center, then you can maybe say Will or Shaq or Olajuwon, however you feel about it.
You wouldn't fail.
Right. It's the thing about it. How do we determine what greatness is? Because when we say who's the greatest, when you compile these lists, it's hard because you got to realize a lot of these people compiling lists are ranking people they've never seen play,
Right.
and a lot of them have only seen one era. So and you're going to be biased towards the era that you see. Who do you keep texting me? I got to dip in a few, but I got to go to an event tonight. But
Okay.
no, it's cool. I probably
We're
15 minutes or so. But when it's hard to compare eras because, like I said, rules were different. Then when you're going back into this up until 1977, you didn't have a 3-point line or something like the 76,
Nope.
77. I think it's when the 3-point line was introduced to the National Basketball Association. So, and I know a guy like Wilt wasn't shooting threes anyway, but when you're talking about guards, it kind of applies to them. Some of their numbers going to be deflated because you didn't have a 3-point line. So it's kind of hard to necessarily evaluate. Then you look at also before 76, 77, or 79, 8, anyway, one of those years, the league didn't count block shots. Like Hakeem Olajuwon goes down in history as the all-time leading shot blocker, but everybody know that Bill Russell had more blocks than was documented. So but then you can say there were only 8 teams in the league, and there wasn't much talent in the league when Bill Russell played, and they were all the most talented players on those Celtics teams. You can argue that too. So you got to decipher through. Okay, you could say that there may not be in competition when Russell played, but you can also say his records are not as good because they weren't counting blocks at that time. So how do you decipher that? Also, in the first half of Wilt's career, he was like the only 7-footer in the league. So at that time, it wasn't a whole lot of others. Most centers were around 6'9", and he was 7'2". So it was kind of like he had a distinct advantage when there weren't other besides Russell, any other elite centers. So but then in the back end of his career, he got to play against people like Kareem and stuff, and still ended up winning a couple of championships. Even then, but his numbers instead of averaging 50 points a game, he was averaging like 19 points a game. So now it's like, do you evaluate and say, well, this 19 points a game Wilt is more like what he would be against competition, but you can't ignore the Wilt that scored 100 points though. So it's like there's so many variables and factors that you got to, like Bill Walton is another polarized one. I know he was on the 50 graders. I know they put him on the 75, but he's a Hall of Famer. Bill Walton basically just had he won that championship in Portland in 1977 and did nothing else because he was injured. He was injured just as much as Anthony Davis is. So do you penalize him because he missed so much time and was injured and his numbers were marginal? But you can say that just like Derrick Rose, he's only one of 2 players to win MVP and 6th Man of the Year. So and he was a finals
and he did make the list.
Right. So and I think Walton himself will tell you that he doesn't deserve to be on those kind of superlative lists. Walton even said himself if he was a black guy, he would not be in the Hall of Fame. He said that. Because Walton's actually a pretty good guy, like when it comes to stuff like that. Like Maurice Lucas was his best friend, the late Maurice Lucas, which is why he named his son Luke after Maurice Lucas. So when you look at that, there's so many variables you gotta account for. Like even when because you can't. I know you said numbers online, but you can't just look at numbers. If numbers alone, if you just look at pure numbers, then there's a lot of subjectivity. Like look at World Be Free. World Be Free has numbers. He had a season where he averaged 31.1 a game. Nobody considers World Be Free one of the greatest players. Adrian Dantley, who eventually got in the Hall of Fame. Adrian Dantley put up big scoring numbers like that. But nobody talks about Adrian Dantley as one of the all-time greats. And I'm not saying he is. Did Adrian Dantley make that 75 list?
No, I don't think he did.
Right, and Adrian Dantley is a Hall of Famer. But my point, and that's what I'm getting at. Nobody talks about Adrian Dantley and those regards. So you got guys who got numbers. Like look how long it took Artis Gilmore to get into the Hall of Fame, and I bet Artis Gilmore is not on that 75 list either. But one time, up until at the time Artis Gilmore didn't make the Hall of Fame, he was the only person who averaged like 18 and 11 or 18, whatever it was, and X amount of blocks who wasn't in the Hall of Fame. But nobody talks about Artis Gilmore. When you hear people talk about great centers of the past, you never hear Artis Gilmore's name mentioned. So a lot of it is what the perception of you was, not necessarily what you actually did. Even though with a guy like Artis Gilmore, the numbers are there to make the argument. Like if you look at Tim Duncan's numbers and you look at Artis Gilmore's numbers, it's not like they're that far apart. But and Artis Gilmore isn't in the class of Tim Duncan. I want to make that clear. But I'm saying, well, how do you evaluate it? Do you evaluate it just based on how you feel? Do you evaluate it based on the impact they had on the game at the time they were playing? Do you evaluate it based on how they were revered at the time they were playing? Or do you evaluate it with the benefit of hindsight and looking at it and comparing it to other people? Like, how do you evaluate it? To me, it's too much gray area. And there's no clear, even with the Hall of Fame basketball, there's no clear criteria on what makes someone a Hall of Famer, what makes someone an all-time great, what makes someone worthy of those superlative lists. What's the criteria?
That's a good question. What is the criteria?
That if we were at church, that's something that the pastor would say. If they're trying to get to heaven, what's the criteria?
Like I don't know. Like what are they? That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the Hall of Fame, the NBA Hall of Fame basis of the criteria.
Back up. There is no NBA Hall of Fame. It's the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, which means yeah. And it's a bunch of crap. Tony Kukoc and Vlade Divac are in the Hall of Fame.
Don't know how.
I mean,
don't know how for one of them. I still don't know how for both of them. I say both of them.
But the Divac one. If you want to use international quota, Divac's own teammate Peja Stojakovic is more worthy than him, and they played in the same era on those same Sacramento teams. Stojakovic was a multi-time All-Star. Divac's just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a guy that bounced around from team to team.
If you're gonna use the international quota type thing to put someone in and use that logic to get Divac in, then you certainly should have Peja Stojakovic in. If you're gonna go that route. Based on the way the rules are, Goran Dragic is going to end up in the Hall of Fame before it's all said and done, just because of the way they have that international quota.
Yeah.
That's why the Basketball Hall of Fame, I say, is watered down. It is completely watered down. They let any based on, and that's why when someone asks me, "Is this person a Hall of Famer?" I say, "Sure, why not?" They let everybody else in. And when someone said, "Do you think Carmelo needs to be a Hall of Famer?" I'm like, "Sure." They got Trace McGrady's in. Why not? Someone asked me, "Do I think Rajon Rondo's a Hall of Famer?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Let them all in. I mean, it seemed like come on, come on. I don't see how a guy like Glenn Rice not in based on the low standards.
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway, I think he was a finalist. Someone asked me, "Do I think he should get in?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Mitch Richmond's in, Chris Mullins in, get the whole run team in there.
Sure, if their Hall of Fame criteria was like the MLB's, I don't think half these people would be in.
Nah, and then someone asked me one time, "Do I think Penny Hardaway is a Hall of Famer?" I said, "Sure, why not?" He only had 4 good years because he was hurt the rest of his career, but sure, why not? Bill Walton's in there hurt like that, so why not?
Throw him in there.
Someone asked me, "Do I think Derrick Rose get in the Hall of Fame?" I said, "Sure, why not?" Let him in. Everybody else is in. Why not?
Medal World Peace.
Why not? I mean, I'm being serious.
Oh man.
I mean, sure. So, I mean, it sounds good to me. Why not?
Why not? I mean, why not?
Name somebody else. Lamar Odom. Why not?
Why not?
Powell Gasol. Both Gasol brothers are going to get in. I'm sure. Powell deservedly. Mark is in, but it's still.
Yeah, Powell deserves. I give Powell that. Mark, I don't. Powell, yeah.
Mark is going to get in. International player, former defensive player of the year, like a 4-time All-Star, and has an NBA championship now. He's Mark Gasol's getting in. I'm not saying that in my opinion that he's a Hall of Famer, but based on most, if Vlade Divac is in, you can't tell me that Mark Gasol can't get in.
You're right. Because how many teams did Vlade Divac play for?
He played with the Lakers. He played with the Lakers, the Hornets, the Kings, the Lakers again, and then he retired.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, and when he got in, when people like when I was watching NBA and stuff, and the commentators like, "Oh, well deserved" and all that. I'm like, "Come on, man. That's just as bad when Coco Beware made the WWE Hall of Fame."
Man, come on, come on, man.
Coco Beware is a brother, but Coco Beware ain't got no business in the WWE Hall of Fame. You know it.
Debo, I don't think Penny Hardaway in the Hall of Fame.
The only reason Coco Beware is in the WWE Hall of Fame is so people can't call them racist.
Yeah, I don't think he's in there yet. Penny
Hardaway's name don't deserve to ever get in as much as you hurt, but if they say bring him in, I say bring him on in, let him in.
Grant Hill.
I like Grant Hill's in. As much as he's hurt, he's still in. You know what? I hope that God is accepting with heaven as the Basketball Hall of Fame voters are with that Hall of Fame. If God is merciful, and if God is just accepting as that basketball selection committee for the Hall of Fame is, then none of us got anything to worry about.
We got anything to worry about.
We all good. Like, did Tyrell make it in? Like, sure, let him in. Darren get in? Sure, bring him on in. Nick, get in?
Why not?
Get in? Bring him in.
Why not? Why not?
R. Kelly deserves to get in. Bring him on in.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Like Hall of Fame standard, we're letting everybody else in.
Jeez.
Why not? The Basketball Hall of Fame has made it. Because think about when it comes to things like me and Chilltown talked about this one time. I was able to get him to agree with me. Shout out to you, Chilltown, if you're listening. Things like Hall of Fame. That's supposed to be the best of the best. You're being immortalized. Just being great isn't just enough. It's supposed to be great above all greatness. It's supposed to be like such a level of greatness to where you're beyond great. It was great and some. Because think about it, you're considered one of the best ever. You're the best. Hall of Famers are supposed to be the best of the best, not just the best, but the best of the best. So of the top players, they're supposed to be above the top, beyond great. So that's not an all-inclusive thing. Just having a good career shouldn't be good enough. Being good isn't good enough to be a Hall of Fame, be a Hall of Famer. It should be greatness and greatness only that should allow someone to be in the Hall of Fame. We're talking about
what impact did you have in your career that made it stand out amongst everybody else?
Right. Exactly. So and it should be a point to where your name should be instantly recognizable. When people think of you, they should automatically think of greatness and accomplishments. Like for example, when you say, and I'm not trying to kiss up the mic, but when you just say Michael, everybody, we know you're not talking about Michael Finley. Michael Finley was a good player. Michael Finley made 3 All-Stars. He was a good player for the Dallas Mavericks, and he got a championship ring too with Spurs, and was starting 2 guard on it. But do you think Michael Finley? And he's not in there. Do you think Michael Finley deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? Yes or no? I'm asking.
No.
Okay, so let me ask you, why do you think that Michael, and I don't think so either, by the way, but why do you think that Michael Finley does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? He's a 3-time All-Star.
He didn't make a big impact.
That's my point. Like when you say Michael Finley, people have to think for a second. Like, oh, you're talking about Michael Finley, he's playing with Mavericks. But if you're talking basketball, you just say Michael. Who do they assume you're talking about?
Jordan.
When you say Magic, who do they assume you're talking about?
Johnson.
Right. When you say LeBron, who do you think you're talking about?
James.
Exactly. So when you're that's impact. When you say Larry, who are you talking about?
Bird.
Right. Not Larry Johnson. Not Larry Nance. who also these are good players. These are good players, former All-Stars. But you're talking about Larry Bird. So you're talking about impact. When I'm trying to think of some more. When you say Wilt, who you talking about?
Chamberlain.
Right. When you say Kareem, who you talking about? Not Kareem Rush.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right. When you say Hakeem, who you talking about?
Elijah.
There you go. We're working with somebody. You're working with me. You're working with me.
Household names.
Huh?
Household names.
Right. When you say mailman, who you talking about?
Karl Malone.
There it is. So I mean, I could go on this all day long. I feel like Petey Pablo. I can do a roll call.
Larry
Larry Hughes. Larry Hughes was a good player, former All-Star, by the way. But now you get my drift. Like I pull this. Do you think Mark? I know Mark Price might be in the Hall. I don't know Mark Price in the Hall of Fame now. Do you think Mark Price is one of the all-time greats? No, and he's a former All-NBA player, multi-time All-Star, and all that. But no, he's not. Like when you say Mark Price, unless you're a basketball fan, you can't walk up on the street and he's a former Charlotte 49ers head basketball coach. So I mean, shout out to him. And I'm rocking my Charlotte 49ers shirt. When you say Mark Price, unless it's just someone who's a downright basketball fan, they're like, who?
Yep.
and he's a point guard, but they're not going to know. But if you say Magic Johnson,
other
than basketball too, but people still going to know exactly who you're talking about. That's the level of household name, and that's getting to the impact. We could even deal with football. When you say Favre, people know you're talking about Brett Favre. But if you say, I'm getting a dang on phone call. If you say Frank Reich or something, I'm trying to think of a quarterback that was a starter but wasn't like a household name. Neil O'Donnell, we'll use that for example. He took the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Super Bowl. If you're just talking to a casual average fan, can you guys hear me? Well, if you talk to a casual average fan and you mention Neil O'Donnell, they're gonna be like, who? I'm like, who? But when you say Terry Bradshaw, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. I don't know about that one. The Ron Artest is the ultimate Hall of Famer. I don't know, but I mean, he'll get in. But
I don't know. They're not gonna let him in because of what happened at the Palace. But but why not? I mean, based on the low. In my opinion, he's not a Hall of Famer. Based on the low standard, why not? But what happened in the Palace, he won't get in. Speaking of Palace, let's talk about other guys. When Jermaine O'Neal, do you think he's one of the all-time greats? No. Very good player. And he was a 6-time All-Star. Why do you think he's not one of the all-time greats despite being a 6-time All-Star?
Palace.
Like, no, besides Palace. I mean, even if it wasn't for the Palace.
But other than that, again, it goes back to what his role was. Right.
But Jerry Stackhouse, a former multi-time All-Star. Is Jerry Stackhouse one of the all-time greatest? No, you had and nobody think, and we're just in North Carolina, so there's North Carolina bias towards Jerry Stackhouse because he's from Kinston, North Carolina. But nobody, I don't think, thinks that Jerry Stackhouse is one of the greatest players of all time. That goes back. But for example, when you say Isaiah, who am I talking about?
Thomas.
I'm not talking about Isaiah Ryder. So and Isaiah Ryder, J.R. Ryder was a good player. He's a former All-Star as well. But if I say Isaiah, I'm talking about Isaiah, and I'm talking about the real Isaiah, not that little pipsqueak that played for the Celtics. I think you can tell I'm not a fan of them. I don't like anybody that played for the Celtics. So there you go. So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to run through a few more names just to give you an example of how you know that someone's had an impact or a big time player. Or when you say Wade, people know you're talking about Dwayne Wade. Right. When you say Dirk, people know you're talking about Dirk Nowitzki.
Right.
Like even in today's game, and we talk about like top players today, good players versus household names. If I say Domantas Sabonis, the average Joe gonna be like, who?
Yeah, they'll definitely say that.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, who? Like who? Domantas Sabonis. But if we're gonna keep it international, but people who Luka Doncic is.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Arvydas Sabonis.
Even his dad, Arvydas Sabonis, was a great player in Lithuania. He was old when he got here to the States. But if you haven't, I don't think Vince Carter is one of the all-time greats. I know I'm in North Carolina, but I don't think. I I don't think so.
No, he's not an all-time great. He didn't make an impact. I mean,
Him being left off that Vince Carter being left off the top 75 is equivalent to when Dominique was left off the top 50. Like right at that fringe.
Dominique should have been in the top 50. I mean, I'll say that.
Well, they put him in the top 75.
Yeah.
I think Dominique led the Hawks to their only only finals.
They didn't get no dang on finals.
In the 80s.
The Atlanta Hawks have never been to an NBA Finals. The St. Louis Hawks won a championship, but the Atlanta Hawks, the St. Louis Hawks, led by Bob Pettit, won a championship. But the Atlanta Hawks, and you can Google it all you want, Darren. The Atlanta Hawks ain't been to no NBA Finals. They've been to the conference finals twice.
I'm just saying. I ain't saying you're wrong.
We good. But they've been to the conference finals twice. They got there one year with Jeff Teague and all those guys, and Kyle Corbin, DeMarcus, and they got there last year with Trae Young. Atlanta Hawks been to the Eastern Finals twice. Never been to a finals. The St. Louis Hawks, the only Hawks team that won a championship. Same franchise, led by Bob Pettit. Drazen Petrovic, Hall of Fame, RP. Not deservingly, but he got killed, man. And I'm glad you mentioned Drazen Petrovic, man, because people used to rock his jersey all the time back when I was in high school, and they had no idea whose jersey they were rocking. You see that New Jersey Nets number 3 jersey, and I got to tell you a funny story about Drazen Petrovic. I saw a meme on Facebook, and it was like Drazen Petrovic warming up for the 3-point shootout during All-Star Week. And it was like Steph Curry was sitting on Dale was in shootout, and Steph was a little taller, sitting on his daddy's lap. And in the picture, you can see Drazen Petrovic in it. And it didn't have his name. I just know what he looked like. And you can see Dale Curry, and it just says, one of the greatest shooters of all time, and Dale Curry, and or something along those lines. And I put on there, I said, let's not cut Drazen Petrovic short. I said Drazen Petrovic shoot lights out too. I said, right. He only played 4 years in the league because he got killed. But if Drazen Petrovic was alive and played in today's game, man, he would have ran up some numbers too. But yes, Drazen Petrovic is in the Hall of Fame. Yes, I'm not saying he deserves to because he didn't live long enough. That's just like saying Big Pun is the greatest rapper. He didn't live long enough. But I respect Petrovic and I hate what happened to him. And I don't mind him getting that recognition. They let everybody else in. Drazen Petrovic is more worthy of Hall of Famer than his former friend and teammate Vlade Divac.
Right.
And like the guy said, pioneer. I agree. He was at the time when you didn't have a big international flavor in the league. He was a guy that played at a high level back when you didn't have that many foreign players. So yes, RP Drazen Petrovic.
Rest in peace, Petrovic. But yeah, I get the point though. If you didn't make that impact, I get it. That's how it should be. You know, you make an impact that stands out amongst your peers and your teammates. Yeah, you deserve it.
It has to be even in music. No matter how bad Master P's music is, Master P still had carved out. There's still a place in hip hop history for Master P. He was one of those people that are part of a big Southern renaissance of hip hop. No matter how and he spearheaded it with No Limit Soldiers, even though he's not a good rapper at all, you still have to give him that credit for his place in history. Whereas if you take a guy like Ace Hood, who's just a guy that came and went, that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Not saying he wasn't talented, but I'm talking about but no impact. Whereas a guy like Master P had impact.
Independently.
Right. Ghetto Dope sold 4 million copies with independent distribution. That'll never be done again. And not in today's streaming era. And it won't. That album, again, Ghetto Dope sold 4 million copies, went 4 times platinum, and was independently distributed. That was an independent album that sold 4 million copies. That will never happen again on this earth. So Master P was impactful versus you got other artists. We'll just say like Mystical. I like Mystical, but he ain't in that tier with Master P. One time, even people forget, and he had the worst verse on the song. Master P was on LL's 4-3-2-1 because at that time Master P had such buzz where everybody wanted him on the track because he was buzzing at that time.
Right.
It's just that history and hindsight hadn't been kind to him. When you go back and listen to him, be like, man, this is horrible. But you still can't deny what he accomplished.
No, you can't deny what
Yeah,
accomplished.
Chilltown.
This part of it.
If Chilltown here, I'm reading what dude said about Chilltown. I said, if Chilltown here, he would have jumped in this conversation and be going back and forth with me and will hold me hostage all night long. He'd be like, so you're telling me that you wouldn't take that so and so's not a Hall of Famer? And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying, brother. He was like, well, if you look at the numbers, he's won championships. He's a part of a great team. That's how he was talking if he was on here. Shout out to you, Chilltown. I'll catch you next show.
Yeah, we at the hour and 25-minute mark, and we about to shut the shop down. Appreciate everybody for coming through. Give everybody the flow. I'm give it the T, and then give it the D.
All right, folks. As we conclude, man, I want to give a special shout out. I know it seems like we're tired of hearing about people that we lost. Coach Rodney Lyles, former Anson Middle School assistant football coach and a distant relative of mine. We lost him this past Sunday. The man bled blue and orange. He loved the Bearcats. He loved mentoring kids. He loved coaching the kids. He loved football. Just a sports fan, big North Carolina Tar Heel fan, and just a great overall human being, man. We lost him. Prayers up to his family. His mother's still living as well. Prayers to her. Those of you who went to elementary school may have been taught by his mother. Great man that we lost. On the flip side, we lost him, but I also want to into some positivity, man. I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It's getting to the point where the numbers and stuff, according to the people who are knowledgeable, are getting better. They're believing, they're very confident and optimistic that we may be getting back to our normal lives. And I'm one of the people. I'm not afraid to say it. I embrace it. I claim it. I speak it. I speak life. Let us live life and let us have it abundantly.
Absolutely. D, floor is yours.
Once again, world, it was a pleasure to do the show. As always, just be blessed that we get our to walk every day in this earth. Just think about what's going on in the world right now. It's a lot of scary stuff. So just think about your loved ones. Reach out to them, pray, do what's best for you. Keep yourself positive in these trying times. So we've seen a lot in these last couple of years. So let's just be positive, continue to pray, and love one another. Peace, world.
And yeah, I want to give a shout out to everybody out there that came through tonight. Shout out to Debo, shout out to Wendell, shout out to All Work No Play, shout out to Mr. Skinny, shout out to the Trap House, Miss Donna, who else is in here? Wendell. Man, I appreciate y'all for following through here tonight, man. Dope conversation, fellas. Great topic. We gonna keep it rolling for y'all, man. But it made a good sense of what T was saying about how the Hall of Fame is just so gray area now. So we're gonna keep it at that. There'll be another conversation for another day. But I appreciate everybody for coming out, man. Salutes to y'all. And we shall be back next week. And like I said, man, appreciate you. Salute to y'all. We out.
See you.